let's talk introductions. The introduction is the roadmap to your paper, meaning that it tells your reader what they can expect to read about in your paper. Introductions are made up of a few components. The first one is your hook, trying to get the reader interested in what you're talking about. The second and third ones are your lead-in and your background information. So that's the transition from your hook to the background, and then information from the subtopics of your paper that's general that'll tell the reader where your paper is going. And then the last part is your thesis or your argument that you're making in your paper, your claim. The first part is your hook. Your hook needs to be either an interesting statement or an interesting statistic or an interesting fact about your paper. The second part is the lead-in. The lead-in is a sentence that transitions you from your hook into the information that your paper is going to give. So you would connect, that's a connecting sentence. The next part is your background information. Use your subtopics to figure out what you're going to put next. If you have 3 subtopics, you want a general sentence about each one so that the reader knows where your paper is going. The last part is your thesis statement. Put in your thesis statement exactly as you wrote it before you started the paper. All of these sentences should flow together. They shouldn't be choppy and they shouldn't be standalone. They should all work together to create the beginning of your story. If they don't work together and they don't have a flow, then you just need to go back and revise your sentences so that they fit together like a puzzle. In writing my introduction about ancient Egypt, I wrote a hook, a lead-in, background, and I included my thesis statement. In the blue is my hook. Since I'm writing about mummification, I tried to find one of the most shocking facts that I could that would get the reader to want to continue to read. So I talked about canopic jars and what's in them, without actually mentioning the canopic jar because that's specific information that'll come later. So I began with the ancient Egyptians preserved the dead's stomach, intestines, lungs, and liver, but did not keep their brain. For me, that's really interesting and would make me want to keep reading. Next, I need to lead that into the next part of my introduction, where I talk about all the different subtopics of my paper in general. So in the pink, I wrote, when a person in ancient Egypt died, the Egyptians believed that they were destined to go to the afterlife, and when the deceased arrived there, they would need to be able to use their body. That connects the body parts to my topic, mummification and the afterlife. Then I continue on with some other background information that will help the reader understand my paper and also know the order in which my paper is going. To make sure that this would happen, the Egyptians mummified their dead. My first paragraph is about mummification, so that makes sense for my sentence to be there. Mummification involves ceremonies by priests as well as knowledge of anatomy and chemistry. My next paragraph, after mummification, is about the ceremonies that went along with it. And then following that, I'm talking about science, so that's why I put the sentences in that order. Lastly, in green, I put my thesis statement, exactly as I wrote it before. By preserving the dead, Egyptians demonstrated the importance of religion and science in their society. I want you to notice that all of my sentences kind of go together. None of them is standalone. None of them look like they're just facts next to one another. They tell a complete story and sound like a story. Read your introduction out loud. If it doesn't sound like it flows, go back and do some editing. I hope that this video was helpful for you and that it can help you better structure your introduction. If you need help, please feel free to reach out. See Amendola at mka.org.